I literally did the notes during the break, so I don't have slides. This is probably good. Last time I did slides, it gave everybody visual aids, so I'm just going to ramble on here for a few minutes and talk about mentoring. So how many of us are 10x developers, right? We're all 10x developers. That's a fun Twitter thread right now. 1x developers. I'm like a 1 over X developer. I'd like to assert that the most important development you can do is developing your peers. You can write code, and that's great. You check it in, you go home, and that's nice. But that's something that you've done. That's one contribution you've made. Whereas, like, if you can help the people around you, that's an amplifying force. You can increase the amount of productivity that everybody can have. So I'm going to start out by telling you things that being a mentor is not. It's not being a subject matter expert. I mean, you should be kind of a subject matter expert in the things people come up and talk to you about. Otherwise, I think that makes you a salesperson. If people just come up and give you questions and you give them answers, that's not really helping them. It is in the short term. There's the teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. Being a mentor is not being a manager or a boss. You're not taking responsibility for these people. They come up, they ask you for help, you talk to them a little bit, and then they go away. That is important. They do go away. Mentoring is not being a therapist. That's kind of between you and them, but you don't have to help them with all of their problems, just sort of within the domain that you're acting under. Now, why should you be a mentor? Why should you do mentoring? Well, in a self-serving way, it's actually very good for promotion. You put down, like, what did I do this year? Well, I've been a resource for these other people to help increase their productivity. I'm contributing that much more value to the company than just, what I myself am doing. If it's not something that looks good for promotion on your company, I would question the company itself. Like, your company really should value that sort of contribution. It feels good to mentor people. This is one of the best reasons. People tend to be grateful, though if you expect gratitude, you're going to be waiting a long time. But you get to see these people succeed in ways that they were struggling with and know that you had a hand in that. And I personally find that pretty gratifying. And this is going to sound ridiculous at first, but being a mentor saves you time. I get people that walk up and ask me questions. And if I just give them the answer and they walk away, I'm essentially training them that I am now Google, I am now Stack Overflow. But mentoring isn't just answering people's questions. It's helping them find the answers. It's helping them discover things. So when somebody comes up to me for some kind of guidance, I try to think about, okay, well, how did I figure this out myself? I, looked at these things, and eventually the thing that made this click for me was this important piece of information. Now, how can I help them navigate towards that? And that's the really tricky part about mentoring. That's what takes a lot of skill and practice, but it's worth it. You can help people become a better engineer because they're better at finding their own answers. And then they have to come up to you less. And then, something that might be a little bit surprising is that you get to learn things being a mentor. You don't touch every problem within the domain, within, your company. So all of these other people that don't have expertise that you might, they're experiencing new things, that you haven't yet. And so when they come to you for help, they'll say, like, well, have you ever dealt with this? I haven't dealt with that. Tell me about it. And, maybe they're not the expert on it yet, but then you sort of get tied into these other things that are going on within the organization. Being a mentor helps you build relationships. Is anybody here socially awkward? This literally happened to me yesterday. I see one of my coworkers, and, he's got his head down and he's working. I walk up to him. I see his badge. It says David. Yep, that's my coworker. And I'm like, hey, and he lifts his head up, and it's not my coworker. So what do? Do I say, excuse me, I thought you were someone else? I say, oh, and I make a sharp left turn because I am socially awkward. But when somebody comes up to you, you are, because you're acting as a mentor, you already know what you can talk about. And, from there, you can sort of start to, open conversations up into other things. What are you doing this weekend? It helps you kind of build relationships with other people in the workplace or within your organization. It is genuinely helpful. It will not make you less socially awkward, but it will give you more people to talk to about being socially awkward. So some important things to know about being a mentor. Don't be afraid to not know. You may think like, I can't be a mentor. I don't know everything. Well, no, of course you don't. You just don't. So, accept that and be honest about it. But be willing to take your best guess. Like, I don't know the best way to do debugging inside VS Code because I'm a Vim user. But when I've done debugging in other environments, these are the kinds of things that I've had to look for. I'm not saying I know the answer. They appreciate my honesty. But maybe my rough guidance will help them. Don't be afraid to be busy. Being a mentor doesn't mean you don't get any work done. You still have your own objectives, but it's important to make time for people. Like, hey, listen, I'm really in the middle of this, but hey, can we schedule some time for tomorrow, about a half hour, and I'd like to hear more about what you're doing. We can go to the whiteboard. But try not to have them walk away empty-handed. Like, well, here's some things I would look into. I think that may help you. That's my best guess. And lastly, kind of be cautious about handing out dogma. I have a certain way that I like to solve problems, and I need to be cautious about trying to instill in this other person that my way is the right way. Say this is how I do it. You may find something else, but at least you're giving them something to start with. And that's all I have.